Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing? Hopefully okay, right? So this is going to be our 8th week, okay? And you know what school we're in again? Something University of the East International. We're doing okay. This would be our Western Civilization class, which is usually scheduled for Monday afternoons, okay? 12:30 to 4:30. It's going to be Humanities 101 is the code. So like I said, we're in our 8th week, so we're getting close to the end. I'm sure everybody's happy about that. And today we should have some interesting facts because they're going to be scientific revolution facts about science that helped change Europe's thinking at the time and then has continued to this day. So hopefully you will enjoy the readings, okay? So without further ado, let me head to the PowerPoint. All right, so again, like I said, Humanity 101, Civilization of the West, week 8. Ta-da! All right, so like I stated before, the scientific revolution in the Enlightenment. So this is a long period of time, 1543 to 1789. So today, we're basically going to go through the scientific revolution part, and then next week we'll finish off with the Enlightenment, okay? And then we'll be even closer to taking the final exam, okay? All right, so let me start reading here. The scientific revolution and the Enlightenment came about as direct, although not immediate, results of the Renaissance and Reformation. So remember we spoke about those terms before. So they came out of those periods in time, those issues. During the Renaissance, many ancient Greek and Latin texts, meaning books, came to light, which means were discovered again and looked at and studied, and were seriously studied for the first time in centuries. So no longer were they just sitting in the libraries collecting dust. People actually studied them. Scholars learned of ancient discoveries in mathematics, astronomy, which is the study of the stars, and philosophy that had been suppressed. Suppressed means held back. Knowledge is held back. So kind of like now where people ask the government about UFO information and they suppress it and say, we don't have it. And they're hiding it from the public. Or dismissed by the church, which means when you dismiss something, you say it's not true. They're lies, so we dismiss this. The Renaissance also encouraged individual scholars to question the church's teachings. Very rough thing to do since the church was in charge of every aspect of people's lives at the time. The perfection of the printing press made the widespread dissemination or issuing of old and new knowledge possible. Finally, the Reformation loosened the stranglehold. They're not really talking about strangling someone, but when you hold back information, it's like you're strangling it. It's freedom so people cannot read it. On thought, so stranglehold on thought that Christianity had maintained for centuries. So the Catholic Church did not want people to question it, did not want people to discuss things. They just said, accept what we say, and that's the end of the discussion. So again, let me point out here what they're trying to say is that, and it persists till now, if you go to a Catholic church, only the priest is reading from the Bible. But none of the people who are going to the church are sitting there with the Bible and studying it with him or following along with it and asking questions. He will say what he needs to say and you will listen. But as we've seen here, I'm talking about the printing press. That means that you will see Bibles where it'll be able to be printed and people can buy a Bible and they can do their own study, their own interpretation of things. Right? That makes a problem for the church. During the scientific revolution, direct observations of nature gave people a new way of understanding the world. The church saw the scientific revolution as a threat for two reasons. It changed what people thought, and more important, how they thought. The increase in human knowledge of the work, okay? So that brings us to the bottom of the first page here. So you know what's going to come next? My students, questions. Yes. So again, I still have my injury on my left wrist. It's a little better, but it's still quite swollen. So be patient as I'll be doing things with one hand. So let me get to the whiteboard. Okay, let me get that pencil. Okay, and first question is on the short reading. Didn't put my cap. I'll see when it doesn't want, it doesn't want. It's a stubborn machine. Okay. Which ancient discoveries did scholars learn about at this time? Okay, so there's a little list there of discoveries as they studied the old ancient texts. What did they learn about? Did they learn about macrame? Did they learn about acupuncture? Did they learn about making wine? You'll have to let me know. See if you paid attention. Okay. Okay, see if I still got that pencil. Okay. I'm going to ask you two questions here, even though it's a short piece. Okay, so my last question for this page is the Renaissance also encouraged students, I'm sorry, you guys are students, sorry, but maybe you're scholars too, or you will be, like Temujin, my favorite student. The Renaissance also encouraged scholars to do what? So not only were they studying, but it also encouraged them to do something very important and very, as we say, controversial, right? Did it encourage them to dance in the street? Is that what it encouraged them to do? Did it encourage them to become homeless? If you followed my lecture, you'll know what the answer is. So I'll give you a couple minutes there to write those down. Don't want to have Titan yelling, oh, he was too fast. I was gossiping with Caroline. I didn't pay attention, and then he erased them, and he's bad. So go ahead and write those down. Step by step, we'll roll through this. Shall be fun. Because I know Ken loves science. And Inky too. Inky was a scientist model in Mongolia. I know as a fact. Okay, let me get the eraser. 1, which ancient discoveries did scholars learn about at this time? So like I said, they dusted off those old books. And 2, the Renaissance also encouraged scholars to do what? Again, dance in the street, start fires. What did it encourage them to do? All right, so now back to this scientific lecture. Okay, so we ended up with work, knowledge of the work on the bottom. Let me skip on over. Okay. All right. Work, so it's workings. Say, workings of the universe that occurred during the scientific revolution was the production of experimentation. So the workings, it just means how the universe worked. And this occurred because of experimentation, experimenting with things, knowledge of scientists making observations, taking notes, studying their data, and developing theories and conclusions based on what they perceived with their five senses. So more of a feeling type of thing, right? Because your senses are not calculated. You can smell garlic, but your nose doesn't say, oh, how strong is that garlic? It just, oh, it's garlic. The same thing with listening and touching, right? This feels good. This does not feel good. You touch a porcupine, it's not going to feel good. The church was naturally hostile or angry to a process that threatened its own supremacy over what people thought. Church officials did not want to change the centuries-old system in which their own scholars and teachers interpreted the world in accordance with their faith, and insisted that people accept this interpretation rather than thinking about the matter for themselves. So you see the bottom line there, is that they didn't want people to have their own thinking, their own choice in the matter. Just accept what we tell you, and everything will be cool. The great thinkers called Philosophies of the Enlightenment applied this same scientific process of critical thinking to social and political problems. So they also applied it to these areas, social and political problems, not only religious. They believed in the perfectibility of humanity and society. So they believed that the human race and society could become perfect, which you can have religion or not, but people are flawed and it's never going to be perfect, right? We're not machines. Their goal was a peaceful, prosperous world in which ignorance is a state of being where you don't know something, either because you don't want to study it or you were just never taught these things, so you can be ignorant of information. Greed, we all know greedy people, and tyranny had no place. Tyranny is like having dictators. So in a sense, the Catholic Church, by saying, we don't want you to study, we don't want you to learn, we don't want you to have a Bible, you accept what we say, that is tyranny, right? It's like a dictator, like a Kim Jong-un. Okay? For nearly a century, the Philosophies wrote, argued, debated, and taught that all people were born free and equal, and that individuals should be able to make their way in the world as reasonable human beings with a right to decide how and where they wished to live. So a lot of freedom there. In the end, they brought about, at least in part, the new world they had imagined. Their teachings led directly to major revolutions in British North America and in France. Okay. Now, there's some more on the bottom, but it's kind of a mishmash with the next. I'm not going to ask you anything there, so I might as well ask you the questions from this part. Okay. So again, it's back to, oops, didn't want to do that. Okay, back to the whiteboard. Hopefully everybody's doing good today. Back to that pencil. Okay. Question 3. Okay. 3 is going to be connected to 2. Okay. So I guess I'll have to go back and tell you 2 again because somebody's going to say they forgot. But you know I'm here to help every one of you as much as I can. Okay. How did the church feel about that? So again, Titan might say, well, what? What are you talking about? I don't understand. Okay, so again, it's connected to 2, which I will reiterate. 2 was the Renaissance also encouraged scholars to do what? So whenever you find the answer there, the answer will be connected to 3. And that's why I asked 3, how did the church feel about that? So there's no reason to feel lost there, okay? Okay, yay, I still have my pencil. I'm only going to ask you 2 here, okay? Okay, what did the great thinkers believe? Okay, what was it that they believed in? Okay, pretty simple, not a long answer. I usually give you short answers so you can remember those nuggets. I'll give you a few minutes to write these down as I make sure I mark off what we've done already. And hopefully everybody's doing good, like my buddy Lesuk. Lesuk, I hope you're doing really good. Right. Mr. Saba Saba, you too? Okay. Okay, so let me get the eraser here. So again, 3, how did the church feel about that? So once you have the answer, question 2, you can easily answer question 3. 4, what did the great thinkers believe? What did they believe in? Free hamburgers for everyone? Did they believe in unemployment benefits for everyone? They believe in clowns taking over the earth. What did they believe in? Okay. So back to that scrumptious lecture. material. Okay. So we ended up with France. So let me give you some. These are not fun facts, but if we were studying this more in depth, these are chapter objectives. I'm just going to read them to you so you just have them in your mind and you say, oh, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. But I'm not going to test you on any of this material, but I have to go over it with you. So don't worry. Chapter 8, objectives. Explain the causes of the scientific revolution, which is what we're doing all this week. Next week will be the Enlightenment. Identify the major achievements and discoveries of the scientific revolution. These steps will do that. Define the Enlightenment and its major causes and effects. Again, that will be next week. Identify the major figures, which means people and persons, of the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment, and match each person to his or her accomplishments in science, mathematics, literature, and philosophy. Oh, this looks like this is an answer to one of my first questions, if you just pay attention. So, and this timeline will do that. So 1543, Copernicus argues in De Revolutionibus that planets move around the sun. 1577, Tycho Brahe proves that comets are astral bodies. I guess the church at that time had said that they weren't, that they were religious. And he said they're more of a physical nature caused from space. 1609, oh, that was a good year. I drank a lot of wine in 1609. Johannes Kepler discovers that planets move in elliptical orbits. 1610, Galileo observes moons of Jupiter. So Jupiter has its own moons. I think they have two. We have one. 1633, Roman Inquisition forces Galileo to recant. To recant means to say, oh, I was wrong. I am not correct. I made a mistake. But that's because they forced him. 1637, Descartes publishes work on analytical geometry. So since I'm a language person, my math skills are very weak, so I don't think I could study analytical geometry. 1654, Christian Huygens invents the pendulum clock, back and forth, tick, tock, tick, tock. That is a pendulum. 1687, Newton publishes Principia Mathematica, another book that would be difficult for me. 1748, Montesquieu publishes L'Esprit de Loi. Okay, so if there's any French speakers in there, you know what that means. 1759, Voltaire publishes Candide. 1762, Rousseau publishes Contrat Social. 1776, American Revolution begins. So that gives you a timeline. So if you had my other class, you can see, hey, what's going on in Europe at this time compared to what's going on in the small and tiny United States. And then 1789, the French Revolution, where they had a revolution over cheese. Okay. And now we're on to the reading material. The ancients, first in the Middle East, and then in classical Greece and Rome, had made great strides or great achievements, victories in mathematics and the sciences. However, during the Christian era, any scientific teachings that conflicted or went against with the Bible were rigorously is very strongly suppressed and denounced as hearsay. or heresy. I've already explained suppressed and denounced. Heresy, when a church says that you're a heretic or you are practicing heresy, then it's kind of like saying you're evil and you're an enemy of the church, right? So, um, I don't know, you could belong to any religious group right now. And if you're in church and then you say, I think, Jesus Christ was a homeless drug addict, they would tell you you're talking about heresy right there and probably kick you out. During the Middle Ages, scientists theorized without having the means of testing their ideas with by experimentation, which is a good way of testing. By the 17th century, this was no longer the case. The invention of the telescope, for example, made it possible to see the heavens up close and observe how the planets move through space. So now you can actually see how they did that instead of just listening to the church telling you how they moved. By the same token, or by the same reason, printing had spread throughout Europe beginning in the 1400s, so it was much easier to publicize and share new knowledge than it had been in medieval times. So just like everybody now is all, oh, I've got my internet and I've got my iPhone, got my cell phone. When I grew up, there was no cell phone. There was no iPhone. There wasn't even a home computer. So imagine how much slower news was. You had to wait till the news was printed in the newspaper on Monday night so you could see it Tuesday. So quite different. So at this time, they had nothing. Most people were illiterate. They could not read. So now people could read and there's knowledge for them. It made possible a true scientific community of scholars who knew one another, corresponded, which means wrote letters back and forth, and shared and discussed their ideas. The era is known as the scientific revolution for two reasons. The first is the major discoveries in astronomy, physics, mathematics that took place at this time. The second is a shift in thinking that was both the cause and the result of, here we go again, the big theme this week, the scientific revolution. In the past, people had believed that what happened in the universe was a result of divine whims. Okay, whims are kind of like desires, quick, basic desires. People say, I did this on a whim. Suddenly I wanted to drive to Vegas. No planning, nothing, but divine. So from God, that were beyond human understanding. So again, that's what the church preached. That anything that happens in the universe is because of God and whatever whims that God had, and we do not or cannot understand them. Now they saw the universe as a machine that worked according to fixed laws that humans could discover for themselves and understand. However, the scientific revolution did not do away with human faith in God. And that's an important point. A lot of people don't discuss that. People, even though they were leaning towards science now for many answers, they still believed in God, right? They believed in God. Okay, so I'm at the bottom of this page, which with me would be 103. Now see, I just touched this and this thing started jumping. Bad, 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 bad. I'm gonna get tough, right? Okay. All right, so let me go to the whiteboard. Let me get that pencil. And I guess I will stay again with just 2 questions. But 5 looks like a long question. Darn it, I gotta write a long question and you're gonna write a short answer. Terrible for me. Let me check the spelling on this. Trying to be correct for you guys. Okay. Okay. Let me read this for you. During this time, what did the church think of scientific teachings that were contrary to theirs? Long question, it's a short answer. A very short answer. So I did most of the work there. Okay. Okay. Let me go on, make sure I have the pencil. Write my next one. Oh boy, another long one. And you guys will get lucky and get the short answer. Oh, maybe a little, write a little more. Gotta make you write a little more sometimes. Okay. What are two reasons? You're gonna have to write two answers. What are two reasons that this era was known as the scientific revolution? You're gonna have to give two reasons there. Was it known because people ate hamburgers? Why? So I'll give you a couple of minutes there. Let me make sure I'm up to date on where we are. Okay, we're doing fine. We're moving along slowly but surely. Okay. Back to my soju. No, I'm kidding. Ooh, chamchara. Oh, wrong. Okay. Okay. So it's back to the eraser, or in Spanish, el borrador. 5, during this time, what did the church think of scientific teachings that were contrary to theirs? They say, that's great stuff. We're going to change the Bible. Thanks for letting us know. Maybe that's what they thought. 5 is gone. 6, what are two reasons that this era was known as the scientific revolution? So again, Purevi, don't write just one answer. Write two. It says two reasons. Okay. Even if you have to copy off of Tal. Okay. All right. So that's done. I've marked all my spots. Let me go back to the lecture. Okay, so we ended with the faith of God. That means we have to proceed to the next page, which in my book would be 104, which she usually likes to buy the books. Rather, not Wani, but we know who. Rather, it suggested that God had created the universe and set it in motion according to the laws that scientists have observed. So again, even though they were leaning towards science, they still believed, well, God did create the universe. He set it in motion, but there are scientific laws that have to be observed. So they were not complete heretics. They still had their deep belief in God. Now we have people who are, I'm a complete scientist. I don't believe in God. Science is completely the answer. Shut up. But at this time, people still combined both beliefs. God was considered similar to a watchmaker who designed and built a watch, wound it up, and left it to run on its own. So, universe, you're on your own now. Do your thing. As new discoveries followed one another, science became the hobby of many people of leisure. Do we know what leisure is? Leisure is the free time that you have to do whatever you want. Some people, it's like, let's say, some minutes doing some sports, working on their cars. Some people, like Miss Bae, she follows K-pop guys, right? Especially BTS. Maybe an older lady will watch Korean dramas to excite her life. This is her free time, her leisure. So the science at that time became the hobby of many people of leisure. These rich people, and including monarchs, again, monarchs are kings and queens, such as Catherine the Great of Russia, helped the scientific revolution in two ways. Oh, here we go. First, their interest in science and mechanics lent, remember that's the past tense of lend, an air of respectability to experimentation and discovery. So that means basically, if famous people like this and interested in science, then it must be good. It must be cool. Second, they were reliable sources of patronage and sponsorship. So we all know sponsorship and then patronage. So being interested, being rich, being powerful, they could sponsor you or give you donations, which, as it says here, provides financial support. Influence with the powerful and welcome interest and enthusiasm to many scholars. Oh, yes. Now we head to the middle of the page. Major figures of the scientific revolutions. Now we have to identify more in depth these major figures. The scientific revolution was an international phenomenon. Scholars from all over Europe took part in it. And this chapter describes the most important figures of the era, meaning of the time. Copernicus, we'll start with Copernicus, not corn dogginess, right? Even though I love corn dogs, but Copernicus. Here we go. Nicolaus Copernicus was born in 1473 in Torun, Poland, not Tull, Poland, Torun. He learned astronomy from the books he read as a student in Italy. Books of the time agreed that the Earth was at the center of the universe and that other heavenly bodies, stars, planets, including the sun, traveled around the Earth. In ancient times, both Ptolemy and Aristotle had arrived at this view by observing the heavens. Despite Aristotle's status as a pagan is a person that believes in witchcraft, doesn't believe in classical religion like Christianity. From the classical area, the church fathers had always accepted his view of astronomy because it allowed them to teach that humankind, God's supreme creation, had its proper place in the center of the universe. Very interesting. Now we're headed towards the bottom of the page. You ready for some questions soon? Copernicus, I guess I'm getting hungry. However, came to believe that Aristotle and Ptolemy were Wrong. Oh dear. Started to have his doubts. Oh, Cappy Copernicus. He suggested that the sun, not the earth, was at the center of the universe with the planets orbiting, going around the sun. It seemed to Copernicus that since the earth and its moon were spherical or round, the orbits of the planets should be circular. However, he realized that from the point of view of Earth, that's the Earth looking up and out, the orbits could not be perfect circles. In 1543, Copernicus published his thoughts and discoveries in a book called De Revolutionibus, known in English as On the Revolutions of the Heavenly Spheres. Then it adds he died the same year. Okay? Which brings us, if you have the book, share would be 104. So I got to ask questions here. Okay, so stop sharing this, head on to the whiteboard. Grab the pencil and a beer. Oh, no beer. Okay. 7. Okay. 1 capital, please. Okay, there we go. So straight out of the lecture, you should be easy to find this if you don't remember, using the same words. Oops, don't want to put words together. Okay, what lent respectability to the study of science? Right? So something lent respectability to the study of science. Okay. I can give you a crazy hint here, or hopefully will make you think of the answer correctly. You all know the ex-basketball player, the crazy guy, Dennis Rodman, multiple hair colors, piercings, relationships, wild. He's a friend of Kim Jong-un's. He's visited him a few times. So he just has great things to say about Kim Jong-un. He's the greatest guy in the world, and he's kind and he's sweet. But because of who Dennis Rodman is and was, most people don't give him any respectability as far as him going against the knowledge that they already have. So like for me, even my South Korean students, what you tell me about Kim Jong-un, I'll take that as respectability over someone as crazy and wild as Dennis Rodman, okay? So that's the hint for that. So let me do 8. Oops. Why do I put an equal sign there? It's supposed to be just a dash, okay? Good thing I caught that. What did Copernicus support? So he supported something. What did he support? Did he support free banchan at the Korean restaurants? Or free chips and salsa at the Mexican restaurants? No, I think he supported something more in the scientific field. So I'll give you a few minutes to write those down. Let me make sure we're up to date here. We've just finished 104. Okay. yeah, maybe Copernicus did like chips and salsa, or he liked free banchan. So be careful, my Korean students. I predict the next 5 years you will have to pay for banchan in Koreatown. That's my prediction. Okay. Be careful with that. It's already happening at a restaurant I know in Seattle. Okay. So let me go to the eraser. My hand is not feeling any better, so again, I'm doing everything with the right only. Okay, so 7. What lent respectability to the study of science? Okay, again, don't answer Mr. Hong, Alex, Dennis Rodman. Okay, don't want to hear that. Okay, 8. What did Copernicus support? Did he support? Oh, maybe he supported Donald Trump. I don't know. All right, so let me go back. Stop sharing here. Go back to the lecture. Okay, so again, it ended when he died the same year. So let me move on to the next page. Brahe. Okay. Brahe. So we're going to get 3 new folks here to learn about. This should be great. Okay. Brahe, the next great European astronomer, again, the study of the stars, was Tycho Brahe, born in 1546 to a noble family. So they were in the king's family in what was then Danish territory. Brahe was fortunate in having as his patron a king who provided him with a fully fitted observatory. So the rich king said, love you, buddy. I'm going to make an observatory for you, right? So maybe kind of like the one we have here at the Griffith Observatory. This enabled him to conduct or do direct experiments in astronomy, the first in Europe for many centuries. While Copernicus' theories had been more or less guesses, well, I'm guessing this, I'm guessing that. Brahe's observations told him that while the sun and moon traveled around the Earth, the other planets orbited the sun. Wow, new knowledge for the time. Like Copernicus, he could not understand why the planets apparently or seemed to be circular orbits were not regular in their movements. Now we go to Kepler. Brahe's assistant, the brilliant, so brilliant means extremely intelligent, Johannes Kepler, took discoveries of the heavens one step further. Born in 1571 in the free city of Weil der Stadt, Kepler used mathematics and direct observation to show that the orbits of the planets were ellipses, like a figure 8, not circles. As soon as he replaced the idea of circles with that of ellipses, the orbital paths became regular now. Interesting discovery. Kepler also proved that the planets orbited the sun at different speeds. Interesting. His greatest work was on the motion of Mars, published in 1609. It soon appeared on the Holy Office's Index of Forbidden Books, right? The Holy Office. So that means the church did not like it. Forbidden. You cannot read it. Astronomy took a giant leap or jump forward with the discovery of the telescope. Again, first patented in the Netherlands in 1608, through 1609, so it took a year to patent it. Scientists had realized during the 1300s that a glass lens, like this, could magnify an object seen through it. They had been using this knowledge ever since to manufacture eyeglasses, like what I'm wearing, for reading, and magnifying glasses. However, these were only intended to improve people's vision for everyday purposes such as reading. Yes. So as people get older, you start losing your eyesight. So I'm not in my 20s anymore, so I'm starting to lose my eyesight. I think I'm 32. No one had thought to apply the same idea to achieving a close-up view of such faraway objects as the stars. So see that? It's kind of like China is the first country that invented gunpowder, but they did it for the entertainment and fireworks. The Western barbarians are the ones that said, hey, could we have something like a rifle or a pistol or a cannon with the gunpowder that will do damage and kill people? So here they had these lenses for reading, and no one thought, hey, why don't we make a giant lens and see if we can see the moon or the stars? Right? It took time. So at the bottom of the page, we're going to hear about Galileo a little bit. Galileo, mathematics and engineering professor, Galileo Galilei of Pisa, which is in Italy and where pizza comes from. Pizza is the Americanization of pizza. Was the first to make extensive use or a long use of the telescope to study the planets. With this new invention, at the time, no more than a plain, narrow tube, a little over a yard long, so, right, with concave and convex lenses inside, he was able to see things in the heavens that simply had not been visible to his predecessors. So he was the first European to actually see what was going on up there. Wow, pretty exciting. Looking through his telescope in 1610, Galileo realized immediately that Jupiter had its own moons in orbit around it, just as the Earth had a moon. Okay, so that means we're at the bottom of this page, which for me would be 105, right, Li Xian? So let me go to the whiteboard to do that fancy writing stuff. Okay. Pencil time. This will be question 9. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Let me do a little British style there for you. Let me check a spelling here. Okay. Let me make sure that's not a plural. See, I wrote another equal sign. What's going on here? Fix this. Let's get this out of the way. This should be a dash. All right, so What big scientific discovery during this time helped greatly? Okay, what scientific discovery? Uh, for me, personally, this is a hint now. Can you guess what scientific discovery was the most important in my life? No, not the cell phone, not the color TV, not the computer. For me, it was the rice cooker. That is the most scientific discovery for me. Because when I was a little boy, my mom still made rice in a pot. She would have to put the rice in the water and let it sit for a long time and then cover the pot and then cook it. So when they developed the first rice cooker, we were very excited. That's good, because I ate too much rice, and that was important to me. Okay. So again, I'm going to stay with only 2 questions on this. I'm kind of a steady guy for you today. 2, 2, 2. Oops, my pencil was stolen again. Who is stealing this pencil? That's what I want to know. It's Monk, probably Monk Bayar stealing my pencil. I know it's her. Or Marie from Russia? No. Okay, so let me read this for you. It's connected to 9. So again, once you get the answer for 9, what big scientific discovery during the time helped greatly? I said it was the rice cooker. So which scientist made great use of this at the time? So which scientist made great use of the rice cooker at the time, right? So let me give you a few minutes to write that down. Let me mark where we just finished. And it looks like we only have 2 more pages to go. Wow. I might even end a little early today. Should be fine, right? So go ahead and answer 9 and 10. Did anybody feel that earthquake the other day? I think it was supposed to be Friday. I didn't feel it. I wonder if anybody felt it. Supposed to rain yesterday and it didn't rain. It was cooler, but it didn't rain. And now today's hot, so I don't know what's going on with the weather. Oh, that chum chum's good. Wow. Thank you, Alex. Little apple polish. Okay. All right, eraser time. 9, what big scientific discovery during the time helped greatly? Like I said, rice cooker. But don't believe me. And then 10, which scientists made great use of this at the time? Okay. Now we're all caught up. We have to move forward. So let me go back again to the delicious lecture material. So we finished with the intro about Galileo. So I got to go to my next page. It's a long one. Okay, so again, just for continuity, the Earth had a moon. This discovery, as you see here, alone proved that the Earth was not, so it proved it, the center of the universe around which all other objects orbited. When Galileo published his new knowledge of the heavens, Kepler and most of Europe's intellectuals, including the Jesuit astronomers, eagerly accepted them. Wow, they eagerly accepted them. Because it was proof, baby, proof. Through his telescope, Galileo saw the rings around Saturn, so the planet with the rings around it, although he did not understand what they were. So he saw them, but didn't. I think now we've discovered they are gases, different gases with some kind of particles inside. He observed that contrary to Aristotle's assertion or comment, statement, that all heavenly bodies were perfect, smooth spheres, the surface of the Earth's moon was scraggy and irregular. So you see it's got its holes and up and down shapes. Not correct, Aristotle. Since the church had accepted Aristotle's theory of the universe, this meant that Galileo was well on his way to making an enemy of one of Europe's most powerful institutions, aka the Catholic Church. In 1632, Galileo published Dialogue on the Two Great Systems of the World, written in the form of an imaginary dialogue between Copernicus, imaginary, and Ptolemy. This work discussed theories about planetary orbits and tides, so like tides with the ocean. Right? It comes in, it goes out. Lifelong and devout. So devout is very earnest, regular Catholic that goes all the time and studies. Galileo dedicated the dialogue to the Pope Urban VIII. So again, you see at the time, science, 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 but yet I still believe in God and I respect the Pope. But as we see, this might not have been enough. It was clear that he anticipated no trouble from the church because of his kind writing. He had carefully refrained from discussing such certain forbidden topics, such as the work of Kepler. Now, let me see where I'm at here. Because, yeah, so I'll have to continue. Okay, it's a long one. Sorry, folks. To Galileo's surprise, Urban VIII summoned him to Rome. So the Pope, Urban VIII, summoned, and that's more than just asking. That's you better get your booty down here. To appear before the Inquisition, and we all remember the Inquisition is when they're going to ask you a lot of questions. And if you're lucky, you will not get tortured on the charge of defying or going against the Holy Office's policy against writing about Copernican theory. Galileo produced documentary proof of his assertion that he was permitted to write speculatively. So you have to say, he can't say for sure, because that will upset the church. He has to say maybe, possibly, about Copernican astronomy. Despite this evidence, the Inquisition refused to face the public mockery that would have resulted from making a mistake over a figure so internationally famous as Galileo. So what that means there is that he was so famous, if they were to put him to trial and they were to make any mistakes, since he was so famous and liked and well known, the church would look bad, would look guilty. So instead, so that they don't look bad, but to still punish him, the Holy Office therefore sentenced Galileo to deny the validity of his own discovery. So they forced him to say, well, I think maybe I'm wrong. And that's too bad. Then placed him under the custody of the liberal Archbishop of Siena, who encouraged him to continue working and writing. Interesting. Continue, please. But the truth is this. In effect, Galileo remained under house arrest until his death in 1642. So house arrest. So he was not in a formal prison. So like, okay, you'll stay in our hotel and you can't escape. And then write your stuff, investigate, but you're going to have to say this is only possible or maybe. You cannot say it is 100% true. He was free to study, like I said, experiment and write. Um, although it proved difficult, though not impossible, to find publishers in the face of a Holy Office ban on anything he might produce. So it's almost impossible, but maybe not quite, because the Holy Office is going to ban most of his works. Within the next few years, Galileo's works spread throughout Europe in various translations and editions. His last book, The Two New Sciences, discussed the structure of matter, right? Supposedly the universe is made of matter. We are made of matter. The strength of materials and the laws governing natural motion. He discovered the laws of falling bodies and the mathematical formula we use to describe acceleration, which means you get in the car, you're going 0, you press on the gas, how fast can you go 50? So as it goes 20, 30, 40, 50, that's acceleration. Defending his own writings and his later personal correspondence, Galileo argued that God had given human beings the ability to observe and reason for themselves. What people could see and understand with their 5 senses must be the, and we'll stop there because we're at the bottom of this long page. And we got to get into the questions here. Okay. Whiteboard, pencil, horizon. Okay, so this will be question 11. 11. Little shorter questions, thank God for me. And so short answers for you. Okay, who was Galileo's enemy? Was it his brother? Was it his mother-in-law? Probably the mother-in-law, right? Or was it his wife? Did it say he had a wife? I don't know. You'll have to read the lecture. But who was Galileo's enemy? Tricky question. Is my pencil still here? Yay. Okay. 12. Okay, 12 is connected to 11. So what did they do to him later? Meaning the enemy. Oh, them? Oh, maybe there's more than one enemy? Am I trying to trick you with 11? Only saying one? Well, if you read the lecture, you'll find out. So let me give you a few minutes to write those down. Back. So hopefully you're doing well, Titan. You, the triumvirate there, you, Ken, and Caroline. It's a dangerous group. So here, I hope you're doing good too. And your Chingu, next to you. Hope you're being good students this quarter. Waxon, well, I don't know what to say about that. Hi, hopefully things will get better. Okay, so let me get the eraser. Okay, 11, who was Galileo's enemy? Was it Donald Trump? The other one was a friend, now he's the enemy, I don't know. Was it LeBron James? Did he play for another team, Galileo? 12, what did they do to him later, meaning the enemies? Okay, all right. Now, back to the lecture. All right, let me make sure I rock that off. That would be 106 for Lee Shen. Wani has gone to sleep. Oh, we're on our last page. I can't believe it. Would you like me to make some copies with the book and add 10 more pages? Would you like that? I can do it, even though my hand feels like it's going to explode. You want me to? It'll be fun. No? I mean, it's an easy choice. We can end a little early, or we can do 3 more hours. What do you want? Oh, Mr. Hong said 3 hours. Inky said 4. Okay, let me make the copies then. Okay. So here we go for our last page, and it's, oh, maybe got a little half of another. So it's a short one. So truth. Remember, the 5 senses for truth. For instance, the planets moved around the sun, not the earth, as the church had proclaimed. He argued that if this appeared to conflict with the scriptures, which is the writings of the Bible, then human understanding of the scriptures must be at fault. So that's what the church said. You've got your proof, but they're against the scriptures, so that must mean that your proof is not good because you do not understand the scriptures completely. Wow. Okay, Newton, Sir Isaac. They were showing with an apple. The pictures. The year of Galileo's death saw the birth of Isaac Newton. So Galileo died. In the same year, Isaac Newton was born in rural Lincolnshire, England. Newton attended Cambridge University and studied the works of Galileo and Kepler. Newton revolutionized scientific thinking in Europe with his discovery of the principle of gravity, which is the old one that we used to say as kids, what goes up must come down. You throw a ball in the air, it will come down. A rock, a watermelon, a cabbage, it must come down. The single constant force in the universe that attracted objects to one another. Newton realized that it was gravity that attracted the planets to the sun and the moons to the planets. Gravity was what kept each body in a regular orbit at a constant distance from the larger mass around which it revolved. Newton's work explained how gravity could be calculated mathematically. He was the first scientist to apply calculus to astronomy. So, wow, for the first time here, it looks like I do not have any words that I need to translate for you. I think we're pretty good there. But if you want, I can kill some more time and do it. No, I'll be kind, because we got those 10 extra pages to do. Okay, now we're at the middle of the page, of our last page. The importance of Newton's discovery of the principle of gravity cannot be underestimated. Underestimated means not appreciated enough. Must be appreciated at a high level. It revolutionized European thinking, which means completely changed it in a good way. Thinking, proving once and for all that people could understand the way their own world worked, not just believe what the priests told them. Before Newton, Europeans had understood the universe as operating by divine whims, which again I went over, that they could not hope to understand. After Newton, they understood it as operating by fixed, that's the universe, comprehensible or understandable laws. For the first time, an understanding of the world could be based on human reason, figuring things out, and experience, not just on faith. Now we're at the exact bottom, which is great, of the page, our last page, of the 8th week. Like Galileo and those who had gone before him, Newton believed that his scientific theories were perfectly compatible with church teaching. Well, again, he did not lose his faith in God. The reoccurring theme we're seeing here. In his view, the law of gravity was a divine creation, or he felt God created gravity. It was not separate from God. And he was doing honor to God by revealing his divine plan. So he felt he was honoring God by showing the truth of the workings of the universe. Pretty cool. Unfortunately, the church could not accept this view. As it had always done, it reacted to independent intellectual endeavor or work with suspicion and hostility, which is a lot of anger. In a sense, the church was right to recognize the threat posed by scientific discovery, and it was a threat, since science proved that the church had been teaching an inaccurate or not true and also false theory of the structure of the universe. All church teaching was called into question, which means, well, if you're wrong on these issues, we have to question the other ones. You might be wrong on those too. And the church was uncomfortable to be put in that position. The scientific revolution permanently weakened the place that the church held in popular regard. So what that means is a lot of people start to stop believing in what the church had to say and went completely the scientific way. Okay, so that's our last part of the lecture today. So let me go to the last questions. Yay! And I think maybe Emojin said, or Purvei said I should put 12 questions on the last page. So maybe I'll put 12 questions there. Whiteboard, pencil. Question 13. Oh, I think I have to go to the restroom. I'll be back in 30 minutes, okay? Can you hold on? Thank you. Don't start yelling. I know you're yelling, Inky. Paul won't yell. She's a good girl. Okay, question 13. As I fix this to a question mark. Isaac Newton revolutionized thinking in Europe. How? What was his main theory? And once you can name his main theory, then you'll know the answer of how he revolutionized thinking in Europe. Okay. You want the next question to be the last one? If I give you my bank account, can you send it to me immediately, electronically, the $20 each student? Okay. See if the pencil works. I go. Okay. Okay. How did Newton believe about his scientific theories? Don't get upset, Titan. You know what I'm asking here, right? He not only put them out there, but he also believed in them. So how? There's a certain way that he believed in his scientific theories. Okay, so I'll give you a few to write those down. Don't want to be accused of erasing them too quickly. Okay. All right, so I'll go to the eraser. There's the eraser. Toko. Eraser. 13, Isaac Newton revolutionized thinking in Europe. How? That everyone should use a rice cooker like me. 14, how did Newton believe about his scientific theories? So what did he believe about them? He thought, it's crap. I'm just doing this to make money. Okay, so 14 has been erased. We are done with the 8th week. Next week, we'll get into the Enlightenment. So thank you for stopping by today. And I'm going to end the lesson. So everybody take care, write your answers, and we'll be in the 9th week next week, closer to the final. Thank you.